you allocate your time when you're in so many different businesses?
Well, the first thing is, as you've taught me, you have to have great people.
Well, look and say hello to the audience here today.
Hello, everyone.
And they're probably all using some product or watching something you've produced. So number one, hire great people.
Hire great people. You know, and when you have a good reputation of doing what you say and closing or saying no quickly, don't give maybes. I think maybes are, you know, among the worst. My dad used to give me maybe. And so I learned, you know, that maybe is not a good answer. You know, and if you're too busy, say you're too busy. But, you know, I think the network compounds on itself. So as you start to grow your network, finding interesting things to do seems to get easier and easier.
So we can all wish that we had a great team or we could build something. You built, when we first met, one of the great credit teams in the world in credit. But how are you going ahead and deciding who your CEOs are going to be? Is there an audition process? What are you looking at to make that decision?
I think the first thing we care about is people are willing to say they don't know, right? The quicker you can admit you don't know something, I don't think anyone can predict anything. And, you know, it's all about just probabilities and knowledge and experience. So I think table stakes are knowledge, experience, and probabilities. And then you really try to figure out if you can work well with someone, right? Are they going to be able to interact with you the way that you want? Are they going to call you when they have a problem? Or are you calling them and finding out the problem, right? I think every business has problems from time to time, and the quicker that you're told about the problem, the less likely it is to be life-threatening. So we want to know bad stuff as soon as possible. And I also want my teams to present things with a bent towards why it's not working, as opposed to, you know, a lot of happy talk.
So when I was growing up, I think it was Kurt Gowdy, I remember his voice today from the wild world of sports. The thrill of victory and the agony of defeat as they showed those little videos. So you have bought and invested in the leading brands in sports, the Lakers, the Dodgers, Chelsea, etc. Why have you focused on an entry, let's say, to the leading brand rather than trying to come into a market, buy a brand that costs less and build it? Why have you done that?
I think it's pretty simple. I think that it might be a higher price, but I think it's a better value. I think when you look at the top brands, they're hard to replace, and they're super hard to build. So, and I think these things are also, the sports teams are a derivative of the cities that they're in. And I think the city is really important. So obviously with the Lakers and the Dodgers, I mean, the Lakers have sold more Laker jerseys than all the other teams in the NBA put together. So when you think about the power of the Laker brand and just the worldwide recognition, and you know, Dr. Buss started that a long time ago, right? He insisted on having superstars. And the superstars really built the teams. You know, so he was way ahead of his time. You know, the Dodgers, you know, have got another storied history. Break the color barrier, moved to LA, became, you know, won 7 World Series now. And, you know, have been just a, you know, Dodger Stadium is just one of the greatest stadiums in the U.S.
So let's go back to the wild world of sports and the thrill of victory. So let's look at when the Dodgers won the World Series for a few minutes here.
One of these teams will have won a great World Series. Strike one on Willy Adames.
Why do you want to be involved in sports because you can do everything right and still not win.
That is strike two.
I think generally that's pretty much a rule, right? There's no guarantees. And I think it's also very humbling when you do everything right and you still don't win. So there's a component of it that, makes me continue to strive to do the best I can do every day. And, you ultimately start, you figure it out, you put the right people in place, you build the right foundation, and you then let it run.
And strike three. Dodgers have won it all in 2020.
So, as I remember, you were at that game.
Yeah, it was a good game.
Okay, and what is the feeling? Is it the same as an owner, as the fan?
I think that winning is just the best feeling there is. And whether you're a fan who supported a team for a really long time, or you're an owner who clearly is a fan because of the fact that you're committing energy, effort, time, I think it's just an immaculate experience. And you watch, the thing that was so impressive after that was all the YouTube videos of all the fans, and you could see how they responded to winning. And, the screams and the joy and the cries, people were crying. It had been a long time since the Dodgers had won a World Series. And they have, we have more fans come to Dodger Stadium than any other ballpark in the U.S. We draw more on the road than any other club. So, we've got fans all around. We've got people who still yell at me about moving from Brooklyn. I'm like, well, I didn't really have a lot to do with it, but there's still people that are angry that the Dodgers left Brooklyn.
So when you told me you think you want to buy Chelsea, I told you that there's fans in the United States and there's fans in the UK. And if you are going to invest in Chelsea, you better be prepared for even more rabid fans here in London. And they will love you, they will hate you. And so this has been a tough year for Chelsea. Obviously, it's been what looks like a great year for the Lakers and the Dodgers. How have you dealt with the challenges in Chelsea? And as you told me, gosh, baseball is a long season. We could have said the same thing on basketball. It's where you're finishing. How has the soccer, where you football to the world, how has that been? Has anything surprised you about this experience?
It's such a global sport. And unlike in the U.S., there's no unions. So there's a market for top players in every country in the world. And each one of those markets is different. You've got the Portuguese market and the French market and the English market. And, the ability to go to these markets, and then of course, obviously, you have to build a team, and your coach is the conductor of the team. So I think there's a lot that we've learned about the different markets, the global aspect of it all. And as you said, the fans are demanding, and they want to win. And we get that. We want to win. So I think our view, though, was that this is a long-term project, and we're committed to the long term, and we very much believe that we're going to figure it out. We've got the best league in the world. We've got what I think is the top city in the world, and we've got an unbelievable location in the top city in the world.
Being London.
Yeah.
No. You're in L.A. twice with the Dodgers and Lake. We don't know if tomorrow's newspaper we're going to hear that London is the best city in the world.
That's what I think. It's the most strategically located city in the world. You can get anywhere from London quickly.
So I like to think about when you and I were on the road, you and your co-owner, Mark Walter, we went on the road for our home run challenge. In about 3 weeks, I start for the 27th year going to see every baseball team in America. Here's a picture of you with the Philly fanatic here, and Tommy Lasorda just a couple years ago.
Tommy's arch enemy.
Here is you in the Yankees, gaining all this information before you bought the Dodgers. Here's the two of us at Dodger Stadium. And here's one that I cherish when you brought your son, who's now growing up many years ago, with us on the road. Have you got the Hohen family involved here with the sports yet, with the kids?
I mean, they're passionate about all of it. No matter how mad they are about anything with me, they want to talk Dodgers or Lakers, so it's like the greatest icebreaker. No, so it's an easy way to connect.
So let's talk about some other industries you chose to invest in. From entertainment to software to insurance to financial services. Is there anything that links them? I told you when you were moving into the entertainment business, it is a tough business. And generally you make money off your library, not the content you're making. Well, you've proved that you make money. And how many Academy Awards did you win this year?
We're A24, the film shop that we founded in 2012, is the first production house to sweep all Big Six. So they won Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Director, Best Supporting Actor, and Best Supporting Actress. So first time ever it's been a clean sweep.
Pretty good start, but you won an Academy Award for Best Picture. Maybe the most unusual Academy Award, if you saw that with Warren Beatty, where he announced another film won the Academy Award, and they had to come out and tell him on stage, no, it wasn't that, it was.
I was in bed and watching it, and they said La La Land, and I threw the remote at the TV and went to sleep. And then I woke up a couple hours later and realized that, that Moonlight had won.
So, but let's go through, is there a thread at all between insurance, entertainment, financial services? Is there anything that you've found in common from investing in all of these areas?
Again, the key is the people. Daniel Katz, who founded A24 with us, he was working for us at Guggenheim. And so we had firsthand knowledge of how he thought about risk. And I had never seen anyone take kind of a credit mentality to film. And really, while watching the carnage that went on, I don't know, there was a slate deal that was done. Poseidon was a complete disaster. People lost hundreds of millions of dollars. And Daniel just was really good at avoiding all that. He didn't put us in any of it. He actually only made 3 investments while he was at Guggenheim in the film world. We built a slate where we were able to sell the foreign markets for more than the film cost to produce. So we were able to keep the domestic. So he would go to Germany and sell the film in Germany, sell the film. So we did a slate of 6 films, and we were able to raise more money than all the films cost, and be able to keep the domestic. So that was his first thing he did. The second thing he did was he shorted MGM bank debt. And you remember when MGM went into bankruptcy, so the bank debt went from 95, 98 cents on the dollar down to 50. So he had a big short on that, and we covered that, and that worked out well. And then we bought a structured finance film slate where we were the top of the capital structure, and we were able to buy that at 65 cents on the dollar, and that ended up paying off at par. So Daniel really understood risk, and we had a real good chance to spend time with him. And then he started A24. And the model was go out and buy product that already exists and distribute it. So you're not taking risk on the cost of goods. And he did that and generated some real value. And then he took that value and he started owning the intellectual property of films. So that was Moonlight, was his first one that we owned. $2 million, $75 million at the box office, and then all the ancillaries. So then he kept rolling that in, and he continued. And now he's doing deals with Netflix and HBO, and Beef is his new hit. Euphoria was a hit. It still is. So he's really built a great business You know, we put $19 million in it in 2012, and we never put another dollar of equity capital in it. And he just sold 10% for over $2 billion.
So there is a chance to make money in making film and content.
You have to have a credit mentality.
Let's talk about personal involvement. When I was watching the Academy Awards, I felt like I might have seen you on stage. Did you go on stage that night?
No, I was not there.
But what about when you became the head of the award show from the Hollywood Foreign Press?
Interim
Not
head.
everyone knows that they were watching you on midnight and the ball coming down in New York. Talk about some of these award shows.
They're very promotional, right? So the goal is to raise awareness for the best of the best. And whether that's New Year's Rockin' Eve, you know, in New York City, and now we have New Year's Rockin' Eve. Eventually we're going to have it start in New Zealand, you know, in Auckland, go to Australia, and just keep going around the world. That's our goal, right? So we'll have 24 hours of New Year's Eve program. But right now we have it in New Orleans, Vegas, New York. And I think our long-term goal, it will be, like I said, to be global. But you're celebrating the best of the best. And, you know, the New Year's Eve rocking show, you know, Les Moonves told me when he was at CBS, we don't even try to compete against it, right? It dominates the airwaves that night. So they would run crappy movies against New Year's Rockin' Eve. So that's been a beast, and we expect it to just get bigger. The Golden Globes, you know, is obviously, you know, COVID was not kind to the Globes. They also had to go through their own reform process. And what people really didn't appreciate was the governance of these organizations is 80 years old. And the governance is so complicated that anytime they go to change the rules, you know, they end up fighting over the silliest things. You know, the Golden Globes has a rule that they need 5 days to call a meeting, right? So that was because 80 years ago, you had to get into LA from your horse and buggy and, you know, get to the meeting. They haven't changed that rule because they can't agree on whether it's 6 hours or 8 hours or 9 hours. So, you know, therefore, these legacy governance things. And then, of course, the journalism business got pounded on. So, you know, what they didn't want to do was expand the body because they thought they would dilute their ability to earn a living. Because they're using that as an ability to write stories and sell stories around the world based on exporting Hollywood into all these foreign markets. So, you know, that was a interim role, but we were able to get it back on NBC last year, and we're successful there. But you also live in a world where there's a transition going on. Broadcasters are not spending money. I mean, you might have seen that James Corden, our partner in Full 73, just had his last Late Late Show. And, you know, they wanted to cut the budget from 70 million to 35 million or something. But the problem is then the product's not going to be good. So, but the broadcasters are also going through a challenging period of time.
Let's talk about a whole different industry. Airplanes. You bought a major interest in FlexJet. What were you seeing there?
I think that the private travel business is going to continue to grow. I think people are going to continue to allocate more of their capital towards those types of products and services. I think travel is getting harder and harder. I think, you know, obviously the pandemic really accelerated this. You know, I remember when we were sitting in March of 2020 and we were at a FlexJet board meeting and we were thinking, oh my God, this pandemic's just going to kill this company. What are we going to do? And sure enough, that pandemic might have been one of the best things that ever happened to FlexJet, right? Because people started, there's this whole population of people who can afford to travel privately but didn't think it was worth the cost. And I think that accelerated a whole group of people. So, you know, FlexJet was the first business to ever decertify a union and the first airline to decertify a union. And they did that over several years. But what that means now is that we can pay our pilots for performance. We can put pilots attached to tails. So every plane, if you're in the red label product at FlexJet, has 6 pilots that you always get the same pilots. So it's as if you have your own plane, right? So you're not looking at new people that you're meeting every time, but that product is only available because they were able to decertify the union. And so I just believe it's going to continue to grow. And when you think about kind of how you want to allocate your costs, I think once you start using it, you realize how valuable it is as a service, especially if you're focused on time.
Interest rates are having a big impact today. We've seen it this year with banks that had not matched their maturities of liabilities and assets. Where do you see the opportunities today as you look out investing in light of today's markets?
So we believe that fixed income's very compelling right now. We've been making a lot of loans to businesses. We've been buying Paramount bonds and Warner Brother bonds, and you're buying these bonds at 70 cents on the dollar. So if Warner Brothers has $45 billion of debt and you're creating it at 70 cents on the dollar, you're basically buying in with the belief that the business is worth 70 cents times 45, roughly 30 billion. And we believe the library alone is worth 30 billion. So we've been able to buy these bonds at at one point they were as cheap as 9. They're probably trading at 7 right now. So we bought a lot of those types of bonds. We've also been making a lot of loans, and we've been buying a lot of CLO paper. Of our balance sheet, close to 20 billion of it is floating rate assets. So we used to be kind of hand-to-hand combat to generate 5.5% yields. Well, SOFR's now 5. Right, so we'll have 15, 17 billion times 500 basis points just show up because SOFR's gone from 0 to 5. So I think we've always been really focused on floating rate assets because we don't think they have a lot of duration risk. So we weren't buying investment grade bonds at 3%, 4%, 5%. Now we're buying them where we can get 7s and 9s. But we're also looking at the floating rate asset class.
So what is the key to innovate as an investor? For 2 decades, I didn't have anyone come and visit us between, say, 6 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. If you wanted to talk to us, you could come between 4 in the morning or 5:30 or after 4. But I did set aside an hour in the afternoon to listen to every crazy idea. Because even if they were crazy, it made you think. Why do they think that way? What could be done? And I remember the firm kept telling me, what are you wasting your time? But it's those ideas that, even if you don't implement that make you think there might be a better way or a different way or a new industry to be created. What do you do to innovate and try to find these?
We really try to identify problems, right? And then we try to solve the problems. For example, I believe very much that anyone who's born at time 0 should have life insurance. Life insurance when you're young is super cheap. And then it becomes an asset that you can do a ton with, right? So, why is it that people wait till they're 50 or 55 or 60, to buy annuity product or life insurance product, right? I would think that you would buy it early and then let the compounding really go to work, especially because there's so many tax benefits, right? So I think we're looking for how do we frame that? How do we put it, to the world in a way that makes it compelling? And then how do we solve what we think is a problem? So to me, whenever I find a business that's solving a problem, then I know that it's creating value. And then it's just a question of, does the business model work? we're looking right now at, we've talked about it a little bit, but the Balkans, right? The Balkans have been relying on Russian energy since the dawn of time. And now, if you want to be part of the EU and you're in the Balkans, you can't get Russian oil anymore. But there's no infrastructure, there's no setup, and by the way, it's strategically of interest to the US to be building oil reserves over there, right? That's a giant problem, right? To me, that just seems like a great opportunity. Now, obviously, you have to figure out a lot of the things that are going on, but I now know from the Prime Minister of Serbia, the Prime Minister of Albania, that there's massive demand. So, I think hopefully we'll figure out how to build a strategic oil reserve over there.
So alongside with my family, you have been one of the major supporters over the years of this center we've been building. It seems like forever, but it is going to be coming to an end and coming to you later this year and complete next year. Center for Advancing the American Dream. Why was that so important to you?
Well, I don't think there's anything that quite gives me goosebumps like thinking about the American dream, and the opportunity that the country's given us, and a lot of us seem to be taking that for granted at this point. So, that building that you've assembled, in D.C., right next to the Treasury, it's an unbelievable piece of real estate. And I think what you're trying to achieve there is a real message for, the future of the country, because I'm just not convinced that people really think about the American dream the same way that it meant to me and meant to you. And I think that, capitalism is a bad word in lots of places. And I'm pretty sure socialism doesn't work. And when I'm with the Prime Minister of Albania, we go through his house and he shows me the Russian room, the Chinese room, the Italian room. And these were all homages to when his country got taken over, right, by these places. And Albania was the North Korea of Europe for a long time, right? And he's now the most pro-American I've ever seen, right? So it's interesting to me that you have to sometimes travel abroad to get such a good feeling about what America is. And obviously the Center for the American Dream is a beacon to, what we believe in.
Todd, how has your business approach affected your philanthropic efforts? Besides the Center for the American Dream, you've been so active in many areas of medical research and others. What have you found to be the most impactful way, in a sense, in your philanthropy and at the same time oversee your businesses?
Again, it's the things that are personal to me that I've been trying to focus on. My oldest son was epileptic and had brain surgery, so we removed his left hippocampus and his left amygdala, and that was just an amazing thing to watch happen.
And a pretty scary thing.
Yeah.
Right.
But he wanted to do it.
And he's doing very well.
He hasn't had another seizure since we did it. But basically, we took 70 years of a little bit of anxiety every day and packaged it into 3 weeks. And it was just an amazing experience.
And so any advice you would give as to having a strong family and kids? So you're running all over the world, from Albania to the Middle East to Europe constantly. How do you maintain that family connection today?
The sports help. But just remember to check in. And when you're checking in, remember to be there, and try to put the phone down and, focus. They're, and really learn how to communicate, and talk. I think it's been, they're now 2 in college and 1 junior in high school. And, I think they've learned a lot. Annie Nelson, Willie Nelson's wife, taught us one really good lesson, which was don't raise an asshole, don't raise an asshole, and don't raise an asshole. You know? And, so we kind of live by those words.
Well, Todd, you revolutionized the media industry and so many industries. We're looking forward to what your next thing you're going to pick to do. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much.